1. I used to work for a marketing company that serviced small and medium-sized businesses across America. It was a multi-billion-dollar revenue company. The CEO was a true rags-to-riches story. He joined the company right after he got out of jail in his early 20s for a small drug charge, and worked his way up over 20 years to eventually become the CEO of the company. The CEO strongly believed that the success of the company did not come from the brilliant and intelligent minds that he hired for his executive team, but the hard work, sweat and tears of the in-field sales reps, service reps, made sure the customer services were properly installed. Collection reps chased after the customers who fell behind on their payments, and sales managers. He would often say, without sales, we don't have the revenue to pay your salaries. Without customer service, customers will drop us faster than we can bill them. Without collection reps, we'd lose too many accounts due to non-payment. And without sales managers to hold it all together, we'd fall apart. And he had a rule. Every single executive team member would spend 1 full week of each quarter in the field with a sales manager, customer service rep, collections rep, or sales rep. In addition, when they're in the field, they are to submit to whoever they've been assigned to, and they may not pull rank. This rule applied to everyone, to including the CEO. I know this because the CEO personally rode along with me for 5 days in the field. He was a legit cool guy. I got a story at the end about this. So apparently we hired a new VP of marketing from a major brand that I'm sure everyone will know of. Anyway, apparently the first time he went in the field, the VP of marketing pulled rank on a sales manager, and the sales manager reported it directly to the CEO. A new quarter went by, and I got an email stating that the VP of marketing will be joining me in the field on such and such week. Okay, cool. Not the first time I had some higher-up come out and ride with me. But about an hour later I got a call from my CEO. PJ, the VP of marketing is going into the field with you. Yes, sir, I got the email. PJ, I picked you because when I was in the field with you, you seemed like the kind of guy who wouldn't be bullied or let someone run all over you. Okay, well, thank you. This VP is new to the company, and the last time he went in the field he pulled rank. I've told him not to pull rank again, and if he does, I want you to call me as soon as you can. I understand. Thank you. The VP meets up. Honestly, for the first 2 days everything was fine. However, on the 3rd day I was meeting with an existing client. This client was a difficult-to-please customer. He would always say we weren't worth the money, but I knew we were because I could see his results, and over the years, this client's business had grown a lot. Said client would beat us up over pricing. I'd stand firm, give him a 3% price increase, and offer him upgrades on top. He'd haggle me down to a 1.5% price increase, and we'd sign the contract. Now I told the VP that would happen, that it would be a long sales call, and a difficult, high, tense one, but to let me handle it. I've dealt with the client quite a bit and was well prepared. Now this meeting with the client lasted 2.5 hours, but I'll get to the point. The client wanted a discount and was threatening to go to our competitor. He wouldn't. That's when the VP spoke up and said, I'm the VP and I'll personally give you a 15% discount on your current plan if you agree to sign a 1-year contract. The customer said, 20%. The VP said, split the difference, 17.5%, and we have a deal. They agreed. I was mad as hell. One thing to mention, my commissions depended on me generating more revenue, and this VP just fucked me over. We get in my car and I go, you pulled rank. You shouldn't have done that. I got the deal done. Had you kept your mouth shut, I'd have gotten more money, not given 20% back. We got the contract signed. We gave away tens of thousands of dollars that we didn't need to. Look, I'm the VP. I then called my CEO. He saw the name pop up in my car's Bluetooth. CEO answered. PJ, how are you doing? The VP pulled rank on me and gave my customer a 17.5% discount on his current plan, right as I was about to close him for more money. That's not right. Where's the VP? You're on speaker. He can hear you. Excellent. Hey, VP. Yes, sir? Tell me what happened. VP told his side of the story, which he admitted the truth, but also admitted to pulling rank and giving the customer a discount. Okay, thanks for your honesty. You're fired. Excuse me? You're fired. You have a 1-year probation clause. You're done. You don't pull rank when you're in the field. You can't do this. I just did. You were to get on the plane, come back to your office, clean it out. PJ, take Mr. VP back to his hotel and drop him off. Sure, no problem. And for the next 20 minutes, I had an awkward car ride back to my former VP's hotel. Later, in an all-hands-on meeting, the CEO made sure to talk about how if an executive is in the field and pulls rank, it's a fireable offense for the executive. And he wants all the sales reps, sales managers, customer service reps, and collection reps to know that. Side story on this CEO. The company had a data plan, which gave us 4G on our iPads, phones, and laptops. Well, the company changed the service plan and our data plan went down to only our phones, and we had to hotspot off that. They said this move would save us $80,000 a month. We had like 4,000 employees in the field. Well, 2 months later we had a conference. We had 3 conferences a year, and after the conference, everyone went to the hotel bar. That's when I approached my CEO with another sales rep and talked to him about how much of a pain in the ass it was to hotspot all our devices and how much it drained our phone batteries and blah blah. And I get that it saves money, but it also costs productivity. The CEO nodded and said, "Tell you what, in 2 weeks the CIO is supposed to go in the field. I'll have him go in the field with you, and if he agrees that it's costing our reps productivity and causing way too many workflow issues, I'll bring back 4G data to all devices." The CIO was there and said, "CIO, you're going to XYZ area and you will be riding with PJ. Pay attention to how he uses his 4G data, and if you think that we should go back to the old plan where all the devices had 4G. The CIO went in the field with me. On the 3rd day at breakfast he said, "Last night I called the CEO." And I said, "Yeah?" And he said, "I made a recommendation that we all go back to our old data plan and ensure all your devices have 4G data. It's obviously creating productivity issues, and when you look at the cost per user, it's not that great." 2. Up until about 4 years ago, I worked for a large supermarket here in the UK. Night shift replenishment. We filled and rotated the shelves at night so they could just be topped up in the day. I'm going to start off by saying that cleaning standards in my store were subpar. Anyways, we had our own designated aisles to fill. I was usually on the product aisle, fruits and vegetables. But as times called for it, I could be taken to other areas in the store that were struggling. Now every department had its own manager, and every manager is different. Our produce manager was on the ball. Department clean and tidy at all times. Paperwork always done. Always back up for holidays. A tight ship. Dairy manager, on the other hand, couldn't organize a piss-up in a brewery. One of the things he was very slack on was cleaning. On the surface, he would have the shelves cleaned, but behind the stock was a different story. The shelves were slanted, so you can only see the back of the chiller if you get down and look directly up behind the area with no stock, so pretty much 100% hidden. So one night, Dairy is struggling again, due to the fact that the area is run by a chimp that the company shaved and threw a uniform on. I get sent over his produce as ahead of schedule. Yogurt aisle, specifically. It's not difficult work, but as I'm filling those shelves, I get a nice view of all the mold on the back of the chillers. The chillers blow cold air from the back, so as I'm reaching my arms in, I'm short with short arms. I get a nice face full of moldy-smelling air the whole damn night, and again the next night. Next 3, I'm sick as a dog. Can't stop vomiting, amongst other things. This goes on for 3 more nights into my weekend. I get back, and I have to have my meeting with the night manager and dairy manager. Mine was on holiday. They're not happy with my absence. This was my second period in a year. Now, I had been at this store for 5 years, and these 2 absences were the only sickness I'd had off. I'm a bit defensive, and I point out the fact that I'd basically been working in a biohazard area for 2 days. I told them about the mold blowing in my face for 2 nights, which I also pointed out to the dairy manager on day 1 and was dismissed. Not good enough. Apparently, I'm only going off sick because I know the usual yogurt guy is always going sick, and I'm trying to take advantage. They never did connect those dots. After all this, the outcome was a written warning. They have to send you out the room before giving you a warning to discuss, as per procedure. Thin walls, I could hear them.
He could appeal based on the mouldy chillers. Here's evidence. Just get him on the clean-as-you-go policy.
And that's what they did. They said if the chillers were dirty, it's my responsibility, as the policy is technically clean as you go. If you see a mess, you clean it. End of. I said that's madness. There's like 7 years of build-up there. The whole aisle has it. Didn't matter. That's the policy. Fine. So be it then. Anyway, that night I'm back on yogurts. Usual guy is actually back in, but I guess this was now some sort of weird extra punishment. But at least I'm now fully aware of that damn clean-as-you-go policy. Another thing I haven't mentioned is not just how useless the dairy manager is, but how lazy he is. This also applies to the night manager and grocery manager, who would spend the night chilling outside smoking, barely popping in to check on things. The produce manager was usually left to handle any issues, and he was actually respectably professional. But he's on holiday this night. Yogurts is at the back of the store, smoking shelter at the front. I know I'm alone all night long, and I have a lot to clean. First things first, have to get to the back of the chillers. All this stock is in the way. Better take it off. So all the stock piled onto cages and run into the chiller. 9 cages total. Only took me a couple of hours, as it's 10 times quicker to take it off, as it is to put out. The shelves are still in the way. Better take them down. To be honest, the back edge on them all needs cleaning too, so all the shelves unhinged and dismantled. They just lift off and pull out. Get them all on a couple of cages and run them into the warehouse so I can spray them down in the cleaning area. This took longer than expected, as some of that black mold was incredibly stubborn. Better leave them here to dry. Back to the aisle, can finally start on the backs of these chillers. Again, just like the shelves, super hard to get off. Took me the rest of the night to get one side cleaned. The other, though, terribly filthy. So that's my night ended. Nothing on the shelves. Actually, not even any shelves. And the managers had no idea. A few people asked me what I was doing at night. I just told them. The night manager said I'd have to clean this. Nobody informed them. Morning comes, 6 a.m. The store manager comes in. He likes to walk the aisles first thing with the night managers. I'm just doing my shopping at this point, next to the yogurts. He arrives. I've never heard him swear before.
What the fuck? The night managers didn't have anything to say? They were supposed to run this place through the night? And they didn't even know a whole aisle had basically gone missing?
He tore into them right there. Eventually, one of them mentioned they had seen me shopping. The store manager demanded someone grab me. He wants an explanation as to why one of his biggest selling aisles had vanished into oblivion. I round the corner.
What the hell have you done?
I was told I had to clean this.
Who told you?
Night manager and dairy manager. They interjected.
We did not.
I have the notes from my attendance interview, signed by both of you, stating that I need to clean as I go.
Well, this isn't cleaning as you go.
Dismantling the aisle was the only way I had to get to the mold. That's when the store manager took a closer look at the back of those chillers. Not just a dark discoloration like he'd assumed with his bad eyesight. Moldy. He went off again and pulled them both into the warehouse for round 2. Ding, 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 ding. Cleaning the chillers is night manager's responsibility. This was inexcusable. I went back to shopping. Came in the next night to hear the fallout. They were both written up. The store manager made them stay and clean the other chiller wall, then put all the shelves back up, then put all the stock back out, and the delivery that was also unworked from the night. All in all, 7 hours past shift end, and they still had to come in that night. I never saw any retaliation. I heard that was specifically from the store manager, not because he's a good guy, but because it wasn't worth it from a legal and career perspective. I had followed instructions, and there are some pretty rigid labor laws and protections here, not to mention a strong union. They didn't want head office to get wind of how filthy they had allowed a food chiller to get, opening up the company to all manner of fines. Clean as you go. Three. So this happened twice at 2 different companies. When I did my first internship, I was supposed to just help another guy do his tasks and launch a new pilot project. However, a couple of months into it, he wasn't that interested in the project or the position overall, so he just gave me the project to manage. It was quite technical, and it required learning how to use a platform with several functionalities and parameters to keep track of. By then, I was much more experienced using it than he was, so I just kept managing the project by myself. 2 months before my internship ended, the guy left the position and my manager gave me his tasks on top of the project, which I did because he had taught me how to do them. By then, I thought I was irreplaceable enough that my manager would just hire me, and 1 month before the internship ended, I asked her if she was planning on hiring me. She told me she wasn't, because I didn't have my master's yet. So she couldn't hire me. I told her I could do everything that was required. Why did I have to have a master's? She just told me she wouldn't hire me. Fine. I asked her if she was planning on hiring someone soon so I could teach them the tasks and the project. She basically dismissed me and told me I didn't need 1 month to train the next person. A few days later, I got another internship that would start almost right after this one ended, and she still hadn't hired anyone new. The Monday of my last week, the new person comes in and my manager asks me to teach her what she should do and gradually hand over my tasks. I gladly comply, and the new girl immediately understands that the project, which by then had grown, and the other tasks were too complicated and technical, and couldn't be taught in 1 week. She talks to her manager and she dismisses us. I leave the internship and get a call the following week from my manager asking me if I could stay 1 more month, paid, just to teach the new girl. I say I can't. She offers to hire me. I say I don't want it. The salary was lower than my new internship and I was fed up with her. A few weeks later I learned that the new girl had quit and that the project had been cancelled, and my ex-manager had been put on a career re-evaluation program, aka she was probably going to get demoted. On my next internship, something similar happens. I was supposed to just help a girl with the launch of a new project. A few weeks later our team gets overloaded with work, and she asks me to take over completely. I comply and keep managing the project. By then I was starting my master's and was interested in data management, analytics, etc. So I start helping the few guys on our team that do those things as well. Halfway through the internship I was managing the project, which had also grown to include a new sub-project, and was doing all of its reporting and helping some other people as well. My manager tells me he is planning on hiring me, so I keep working as hard as I can. However, 2 months before my internship ends, our team is fused with another, and we get a new director. She has a clear bias for the other team, which she used to manage, and that team also has an intern they want to hire, but they can only hire one of us. She decides on the other one. Fine. I tell them to start looking for a new intern to replace me so I can train them, and she says she'll look into it. 1 month until my internship ends, and nothing. I get a new job lined up as a consultant at the same company, and my manager, poor guy, is doing everything he can to keep me. Our director keeps refusing, and 2 weeks before the end she hires a new intern. I start training him, but it's too technical, and by then I was doing things for other members of the team, so I had to train them in those as well. I leave the team, but since I'm still at the same company as a consultant, they can still reach me through Teams. The week after I leave, my ex-director messages me and asks me if I can spend the afternoon training the new intern. I say sure, if you're willing to pay my company's rate. She says she can't because she doesn't have the budget. Well then, isn't that too bad? I still get messages from the new intern from time to time, asking me for help, and I help him though. Four. My work environment is less an environment and more so a conglomeration of duct tape, spit, and cursing. I managed, among many things, a set of rentals, accounts receivable, and customer database analysis. Essentially, our company's bus factor was far too low. Another important bit that I handled were various legal documents that the state requires meticulous processes to be followed, and allows for a digital or physical paper trail. I opted for digital. Now, my boss kindly provided me a Pentium 4 dual-core computer that he found at the bargain warehouse for about $40. I had the most sophisticated workstation in the business for context. This wasn't quite enough for database management and analytical software to boot up. More or less a data set, so I called up our IT guy, who works for the boss's friend's sister-in-law's business, 200 miles away. I go, "Hey, Tim, I need to add my personal laptop to the company network. Can you make that happen?" "Sure. I'll be down at that location in a week or two. Can it wait?" "Sounds perfect, Tim." So Tim shows up. We get the boss to rubber stamp that all is okay, and I have remote access to the servers and some annoying corporate mandated securities on my laptop. Tim's corporate, my boss doesn't know a computer from a VCR. Which is no big deal, they stay out of the way. We didn't have anything like a software policy either. I think some computers had Office 2007 installed, but that's clunky and makes data transfer complicated. It's the 2010s, there's no need for that. I do all of my work on a Google Drive account tied to my work email. This is great because I can hot swap my workstation to wherever the boss wants me today. Sometimes he likes to pretend I'm a secretary and throws me in his office. Sometimes he thinks I'm a technician and puts me at a station with no computer. Whatever, data is transient. Anyways, things have been tense recently. I've moved almost all of my job to digital, and the boss think that means I don't work anymore. Obviously, an office monkey with no papers is an office monkey with not enough work. Now, he wasn't exactly wrong. I had been automating things and was doing the job of about 6 people. How can I do the job of 6 people without the boss knowing? Easy. He likes to manage by the seat of his pants. One day he fired a maintenance person and just rolled that job into the receptionist, driver, and technician jobs. One day he decided that the sales team could handle marketing. Surely buying a single $2,000 camera is cheaper than having a professional do shoots each week. Besides, guerrilla handycam sales pitches are in vogue. It'll be great. Moving on. After 2 years of shuffling, I had accumulated a large amount of jobs, many of them tedious. And with the right tools made by me at home on my personal laptop that happens to be able to connect to the network, a good 4-hour job can be completed with about 10 minutes of sorting and parsing data. So the time comes. We all know it's coming. One of the suits tipped me off that the particular suit whose payroll is wasted on chumps like me had propositioned the boss that a pair of receptionists can do the work I do, for cheaper. Just hire some college kids, work 'em each 18 hours a week, it'll be grand. Knowing that, I backed up everything to my personal Google Drive account, but of course did not delete anything from the company-owned one. Like I said, the state had a vested interest in these processes, and I knew in my heart of hearts that the company couldn't be trusted to maintain records. I didn't want to be on the hook for that in 6 years, so I kept a copy. I figured it would go smoothly. I'm called to the big office for a meeting. There's too many suits. My supervisor gives me some side-eye. It's not a surprise. I carefully make sure to click log out of all locations on my Google account and tuck my laptop into my car before heading upstairs. The meeting starts with the boss saying, "Well, kiddo." Yes, he calls me kiddo. Since I'm not 60 years old, I'm obviously a child. "Well, kiddo, I'm sad to say that I was wrong. I shouldn't have hired you. You're fired." Well, that was blunt and rude. So I stand up, extend my hand across the table, and prepare to thank him for the last few years. "Azafas, sit down. We have things to discuss." Ha! What? I sit down for a moment in brief shock. The adrenaline starts to pump and my fingertips are cold. Boss begins to tell me all of the things they need from me. Contacts, account statuses, explanation of discrepancies on AR accounts, documentation for state interests, all things that as his competent employee I could have printed and had sitting on his desk in moments. I decide to comply with him, starting the meeting by saying I'm fired. Where I live, either of us can stop the employment situation for any reason. He had legally fired me. I counter him, "Well, boss, I don't feel particularly comfortable accessing your network since I'm not an employee." He exploded. Think of Karen, a millionaire Karen with little brother syndrome, who wants to be John Wayne but looks a bit too much like Smokey the Bear's fat cousin to get the role. His explosion was violent, spit everywhere. I'll save you the details of how he stalked me to my car and demanded the employees form a barrier. He called me a few times. They went to voicemail as I drove to a public Wi-Fi hotspot. I carefully removed my laptop from their network. I drove home, unpacked my work lunch. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. He probably had a receptionist being paid minimum wage to hit the redial button. Eventually, I answer a call from his cell phone. He makes some demands. I very flippantly offered to come to work for him for 10 times my rate. He yells some more. An hour later, he's pounding on my door. I don't want to deal with that. I know he carries a loaded pistol in his car. Again, cowboy, emphasis on the boy. The cops escort him away, and I email a copy of my security footage to the responding officer. He thanks me. The company doesn't flounder, of course. Boss man is a millionaire. and has been very carefully losing tens of thousands of dollars a year while operating his business. He may have lost some more in the interim, but that's not my concern. My concern is collecting my unemployment. And wouldn't you know, I was fired a few days before fall college class selection begins. I decided to take a few master-level classes. I've had my BA for a while. Might as well get some more schooling on the boss's dime. Classes go well, and I coast through spring semester by tapping into a bit of savings. And wouldn't you know it, the pandemic happens. And my unemployment benefits are extended. Guess I'll take some summer classes. And those extended benefits were at 3 times the base unemployment rate. Gee whiz, guess I can take a full set of fall classes too. And then the state extended it for another 3 months at double the base. I have winter session sign-up date marked on my calendar. The boss man calls me this morning. I coyly thank him for firing me without cause a year ago, and let him know I made the dean's list last semester. He tells me to fuck off. He called to take me up on my deal. He'll hire me at 5 times my rate. To give him some information, I remind him, wasn't the deal 10 times my rate?
Fuck you, 5 times is too much, and I only need you for an afternoon.
Well, I've been thinking about it. My unemployment benefits run out in a week or 2, so I'll do it. I'll contract you. I want 20 times what I was making, 40 hours minimum, paid in advance, and the written scope of work. I'm only doing the work you say you need done during negotiations.
Fuck you, I'll give you 5 times in a day work and that's final.
No thanks, boss. I have to get back to the classes you're paying for, thanks again. I hang up. He calls back an hour later, just moments before I started writing this, actually. It's actually his daughter, the comptroller of the company. She says she spoke some reason to the boss. He'll hire me at 20 times my rate for 40 hours of work, half paid up front. Actually, it was 100% up front, not half. Fine. She starts telling me what needs done. Turns out they're failing a state audit quite badly, like, boss is not a millionaire if this isn't fixed kind of badly. They have all the information they need, of course. It's on my company email account's Google Drive. I'm not going to tell them this. Once he pays me for half a year's work, I'll gladly spend the hour or so time it takes to transfer all of the data he needs to a flash drive, wait until Monday of next week, and then hand it to his receptionist. Really, the man couldn't have been nicer. He's already covered me going to college full-time for over a year, and is about to cover another 2 semesters. I should buy him a cake. Update. I got a call. They seem to have decided that the daughter/comptroller would be the best point of contact, which is fine with me. We got along fine. She has a nice kid that used to run around the office. It seems like the bulk of the issue is the information that they can't find. That's roughly 0 work. But since they can't find that information at all, auditors are nitpicking very fine details that my replacements have bungled up. From the way she told it, it sounds like a nightmare. The literal end of times. Honestly, it sounds like a solid day of work running through their server with some of my tools. Maybe 2 days. She wants me to start ASAP while they finalize writing up a contract. I gave a surprised ha of a chuckle and said no dice, contract first. And I'll have them pass the audit perfectly, like I always used to.
But there's a deadline.
I work fast.
You don't understand. We only have until the end of the month. This needs started on today.
I work fast, and it sounds like you should hire someone who knows how to write contracts fast too.
Whatever, if you don't fix this, You know what, never mind. I'll email you something in the morning.
Sounds like a plan. Good night. 5. So a while back, an ex-boyfriend and I had gone on a camping trip. Ex decided we should travel up to the fire watchtower to show me an incredible view, and once there, we met a pretty awesome older ranger. We got to talking with the guy about life in general, and he mentions how he used to do search and rescue all over for 15 plus years. He told us how, more often than not, it would turn into a body retrieval. The floaters were always the worst, he said, then proceeds to tell us this gem back when he was a team leader. The story. Search and rescue was out looking for a man who'd gotten separated from his party. Apparently he'd gotten tired due to not being in the best of shape. A plus-sized guy, as Ranger says, and had decided to head back to the cars alone, only to get lost along the way. They shouldn't have let him go back alone, but stupid is as stupid does. Ranger's search and rescue team has been called in, and it had been well over a week, closer to 2. At this point, they were 100% positive they were going in for retrieval. Ranger and his team are headed out again, when the bosses let him know that he'll be having some guy, we'll call him Ken, heading out with them. If I remember correctly, Ken was there to do an evaluation of the team, but again, it's been a while since I've heard this story. As soon as Ranger hears Ken's name, he knows he's going to be a pain in the assets. The guy has a reputation for being a self-inflated know-it-all. Ken joins up with the team and is bragging about how he's been in the military and knows all about search and rescue, and how he'll be watching them closely to make sure they do their jobs right, blah, blah, blah. Having seen the type before, Ranger grits his teeth and keeps his mouth shut, while he and the team begin the search. Ken is driving the whole team crazy with his holier-than-thou routine when they eventually get the call. The missing guy has been located by another team, and they're gonna need some assistance. Ranger and co. met up with the other team side by side of a river with rapids. From the looks of things, the lost guy had fallen in upstream, drowned, and traveled downstream until his body got caught up in the branches of a fallen log. Ranger and the other team leader are evaluating the situation, since it's in a difficult spot for retrieval. Ranger realizes that if they can dislodge the body from the branches, there's enough of a drop that the rushing water may actually cause the body to pop up onto the bank where the teams are standing. It's not going to be pretty, but it's really their only option. Ranger goes down to the team and tells them they'll need to move as to avoid the body just in case. Everyone starts moving except, you guessed it, Ken. Ken scoffs and tells Ranger there's no way that'll happen. Ranger tells Ken, "It may not, but you really need to move just in case." Tries everything to get Ken to move, arguing back and forth until Ken snaps and says,
Just do your job.
"Okay." Ranger and team lead start work and, well, the body does exactly what Ranger predicts. Goes down and pops up like a raft full of air and lands directly on top of Ken. Knocks him flat on his back. Ken starts screaming. Bloated, dead bodies on top of Ken, and the rescue teams rush in to get it off. Now, if you don't know what happens to a body that's been submerged in water for close to 2 weeks, well, it's not pretty. Basically, the meat starts to separate from the bone and gets kind of, ew. So the rescuers are basically pulling pieces of the body off of Ken, unable to get it all in one movement while Ken is screaming in sheer panic terror. They finally get him off Ken, who is now severely traumatized. Ken never worked with another search and rescue team again. 6. Some years ago, the organization I work for brought in a consultant to make us more efficient and reduce waste. She was working across a number of teams, including the team I worked for. For our team, most of our work is office-based, about 75%, but we often work in retail environments and occasionally in industrial settings. The other teams that the consultant was working alongside all seem to be totally office-based. Some of the sites we work at can be quite dirty, or smelly butchers are among the worst. And so we always advise people what to wear, as it's easier and cheaper to clean a pair of jeans rather than a suit. I was introduced to the consultant, and was told she'd be accompanying me on a job. She seemed quite pleasant and was very smartly dressed. I talked her through the booking process and explained the work we would be doing. I suggested that she may want to wear casual clothing rather than business attire. She got extremely angry and said,
Don't you ever tell me what to wear.
And told me that it was inappropriate to tell a woman what to wear. She was unwilling to listen to my justification. A few hours later, I was pulled into a meeting with my supervisor and our manager. The consultant had made a complaint to the higher-ups in our organization. Whilst my supervisor was supportive, as he normally was, our manager didn't want to rock the boat with senior staff, and so agreed to tell me my behavior was wrong. Thankfully, it was agreed that no formal action would be taken, and there would be no record on my file. My manager agreed with the consultant that I shouldn't provide fashion advice, and wasn't willing to listen to reason. Thankfully, it was agreed that she wouldn't come along on the job. About a month later, again, I was told that the consultant would accompany me on a job, this time to an industrial site where I would be testing a piece of equipment. The site would draw steel from large coils and turn it into bar. Whilst not the dirtiest place we go to, it's a long way from being clean. I felt this was the perfect opportunity for some malicious compliance. I emailed the manager and asked if I could advise on appropriate clothing, and he emailed back saying that both the consultant and he had made it clear I was not to bring it up, and to do so could lead to disciplinary action. The job I would be doing normally required a second person to record results while I was doing the testing. It was agreed that the consultant would be hands-on and record the results. An important point to note is that all industrial sites we visit will have a PPE requirement, with the minimum being protective footwear. Obviously, having been warned, I didn't mention this. The site was about an hour from our office, and I phoned as I was leaving to let them know we were on our way, thankfully in separate cars. They normally asked for a call so they could stop production just before we arrived to avoid downtime. As we arrived, we were met by the health and safety coordinator for the site, who did his intro. I produced my safety passport card, which showed I was competent in health and safety matters. I introduced the consultant and explained she would be assisting me, looking at ways my work could be delivered more efficiently. I took my overalls out of my bag and slipped them on over my clothes, and swapped my shoes for steel-capped boots. The health and safety coordinator asked if the consultant wanted privacy to get changed, and she explained she wouldn't be. He gave me a bit of a look, knowing that she didn't have a clue what was going on. He then asked where her safety shoes were, and she explained she didn't have any. He refused to let her down in the factory floor, and she had to spend the job in the reception. Once away from the consultant, I explained that if I had to log the results myself, it would slow the process down. He offered me one of his staff to do it. I then told him the story of what had previously happened. He thought it was hilarious what I'd done and wanted to play along. He asked for the details of a senior manager, and while I was testing the equipment, phoned to complain. He said it was unfair that he was supplying staff to assist me when he was paying for the job to be done. When I finished the job, the consultant had already left. When I got back to the office, I was pulled into a meeting with our director, my manager, and lots of other higher-ups, and was asked to explain myself. The director let me fully explain, and thought it was ridiculous I was blamed for the first incident. I also explained that I had email confirmation I wasn't to speak to her regarding clothing. He said he was disappointed that I hadn't at least emailed regarding the need for safety shoes, or raised it with the manager as a safety concern, but he understood why I'd made a point. I was excused from the meeting, and my manager came out a short while later looking sheepish and never mentioned the topic ever again. We gave the company a discount on the work for supplying an assistant, so they were happy. My supervisor later explained that the consultant had upset a number of people, and so her contract was cut short. 7. A little bit of introduction. I am and have always been a very fluent reader. Reading comes naturally to me, and I read literally everything from short stories to novels, from children's books to biographies, and, this is important, manuals and instructions, including, when I have too much time in my hands, laws, rules, regulations, and legislations. I'm the guy who reads the fine print. I'm the guy who reads the disclaimer. Many a times this has come in handy. For example, when friends or family have some problem with their household equipment, computers, etc., they call me. Then, when I have solved their problem with usually a simple fix, they ask me how I did it, and it always surprises them when I tell them I just read the manual. When this happened, I was living in a small town and working in another town. Between those towns is about a 40-minute drive, if you stick to the speed limit. Me, having driven this road back and forth every day for 3 years, I usually made the trip in 30 minutes. Once in 20 minutes, but that's not a story I'm willing to share just yet. It had been a normal day at work, and I was on my way home, cruising slightly above the speed limit. Soon after I exit the town where I work, I notice a car behind me that is set to my cruise. Overtaking the same cars as I do, following me but keeping a safe distance. I don't think much of it, as it's not unusual. When I have just about 5 minutes left on my trip home, wouldn't you know it, I see blue lights flashing in my rearview mirror. That car following me for 25 minutes was an unmarked police vehicle. I pull over and watch the police car in my rearview mirrors. To my surprise, an officer steps out of the car from the back seat, walks over to me, and asks me if I'm willing to come over to their car and have a little talk. I approved and walked with him to the car and sit in the middle of the back seat, and the officer that came to me sat beside me. To explain the situation a bit, there were 4 officers in that car, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and I was now crammed in between the 2 in the back. It so happens that the other officer in the back is a good friend of mine, so I have some info on what happened after I left the police car. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The officer at the wheel was, I later found out, the senior officer, and the one taking point on all of this. The other 3 just laid back and listened in. He starts by asking me if I knew why they pulled me over. I decided to answer vaguely and said that I had some idea. He goes on to tell me that they have been following me from my town of work to the point of where they stopped me, and that not once did I drive at or below the speed limit. I asked how he measured the speed of my car. Not all unmarked police vehicles in my country have a speed radar, and this one didn't. He tells me that they used a speedometer in their car as well as his smartwatch, which had a GPS in it. I had from the beginning of this encounter been very calm, and that plus my question as to how he measured my speed seemed to annoy the senior officer somehow. He then goes on to angrily tell me that I will be written up and fined a hefty amount of money. Then, just as he's about to start writing me up, I ask him for his name and badge number. He begrudgingly gives both to me and I write them down. He then asks me what I'm going to do with it, and goes on to tell me that I cannot file a complaint against him as he has not done anything but talk to me in a professional manner, and that the other 3 can bear witness of that. Following is my answer, or roughly, I don't remember the exact words I used. "Oh no, I have no intention of filing a complaint against you. Let me just go over things a bit. You told me that you followed me from town to town driving at over the speed limit this whole time, right? Speed measured on your car's speedometer and your GPS watch, right? None of which are legally certified devices to measure the speed of other vehicles, let alone in the purpose of law enforcement. The whole time you drove over the speed limit, you did not have your blue flashing lights on. The laws in our country state that when a police vehicle does not have those lights turned on, the vehicle is considered just as any other vehicle on the road. Therefore, you have informed me, in front of witnesses, that you drove above the speed limit for an extended period of time. You just admitted to us that you broke the law. What I intend to do, if you write me up for this, is to go to your superior officer with this information. I will not object to you writing me up. You do your job the way you see fit. I do, however, find it questionable, to say the least, that you have not used any legally certified method to measure my speed. But as I said, you do what you believe your job is, and I will do the right thing as a citizen of this country, having information about laws being broken." The look on his face was priceless. His jaw lowered slightly as he looked at me dumbfounded while he processed what I had just said to him. Then his face suddenly turned some shade of maroon, and he grumbled that I was free to go, which I happily obliged. I later found out from my friend that he spent the rest of their way to the station cursing me to hell and back, furious that
This little stupid piece of shit had actually read the traffic law.
I never saw a ticket for this violation. 8. I have always liked having a splash of color in my hair, and it had never been an issue with employment until this instance. At the time, I had my natural brunette hair short and spiked up, with a blue patch at the front, which happened to be the same shade as our employees' shirts, which pleased me. One day, a few weeks into the job, the regional manager walked in, a woman with a chip on her shoulder the size of her ego. She did her checks on how the store was running, etc., and was talking to me as I was the newest employee there, making sure I knew what I was doing and stuff. As she finishes up, she says offhanded to me,
"By the way, you'll have to take the color out of your hair. I want it gone by my next visit."
This surprised me, as I'd read the employee handbook to make sure I was following all uniform guidelines, and made sure it wasn't an issue with the 2 shop managers. So I asked her why I had to change my hair. She instantly got huffy and puffed out her chest and said,
"Because I told you to. Are you questioning me?"
"No, I was just wondering what guidelines I've broken, as I've read the employee in uniform regulations and didn't see anything about hair color in there, and I want to be sure I haven't missed something.
Because I told you so, and it's an unnatural hair color. You'll have to get rid of it.
This annoyed me, as I've never liked having to do something just because, so I told her, well, other guy at the register has bleached tips. Manager 1 dyes her hair blonde, and Manager 2 has maroon hair. None of those are natural colors, so I don't understand why I'm getting singled out. Regional manager did not like this, and since she couldn't give me an answer, just repeated,
Because I'm your boss and I told you so, and if you don't want to change your hair, you can leave. I will be in next week, and I want that color gone.
So I said, I understand, I'll fix it, no worries. But just to be clear, so I'm in keeping with your guidelines. Other guy, Manager 1 and Manager 2 have acceptable colors and styles. To which she said yes, and I said, and is my hairstyle okay? Did you want me to cut it a certain way or anything? Or is it just the color? She started getting annoyed again and said,
You can keep it like that, just get rid of that color.
So I confirmed that I would have it sorted before she came in next week, which seemed to satisfy the beast, and she walked off in a cloud of smugness at having laid down her law. As soon as she was out the door, I told the shop managers what I was going to do, and they laughed out loud and said they'd have my back when she came in again. So my blue patch of hair had to go, no problem. Colored tips, dyed blonde hair, and maroon hair like the other staff had were all hunky-dory. So that weekend, I did all three to be on the safe side. I bleached all my hair near transparent blonde, with maroon tips, spiked up my usual style, as apparently that wasn't an issue. Well, turns out that's not what the regional manager had in mind. Quelle surprise. She came in the next week and lost it. Took me in back with two of the shop managers, shouting about how I was blatantly ignoring her, and that she was going to see to it that I was fired. I acted innocent and surprised, and said that I checked with her that this would be okay before she left. My hairstyle was fine, colored tips on the other guy was fine, and she had confirmed that the maroon hair the shop manager had was fine. She was not backing down and assured me she'd report me to the head office for disrespecting a regional manager like that. She stormed out of the shop on her merry way, so again I told the two shop managers what I was going to do, which is get in touch with the head office's HR department myself, as I was following all written company regulations, as well as the regional manager's arbitrary rules. And she seemed to be discriminating against me personally for whatever reason, and I would be pursuing unfair dismissal as there was no reason to fire me. I was damn good at my job and got on well with all the customers and staff. It was only the regional manager out to get me. So I did just that. Emailed the head office's HR saying what happened, and the two shop managers also emailed on my behalf, backing up that I was following all guidelines including the ones the regional manager made up, and that I was a model employee, for them anyways, but I liked them. And they would attest that I was being singled out and harassed by the regional manager if I got dismissed because of this. The next day, the shop managers called me in to say HR had been in touch, and that of course I wasn't going to be fired, and there is no company guidelines for things like hair color, and not to worry at all about it. Have my hair any way I wanted, as long as it wasn't unkempt. Awesome, that's all I wanted. Happy ending. Now let's do the super duper happy ending. Diddle-doo, diddle-doo, diddle-doo. Couple weeks later, the new regional manager walked in to introduce themselves. Turns out I wasn't the only one having issues with the regional manager being on a power trip. After they had several complaints from staff and managers in different stores throughout the area, she was demoted to a regular store manager. I was the straw that broke their back, it seems. 9. I'm a bank teller, full-time Monday to Friday. Background info on tellers, and really all bank employees, is that we get paid fairly well and get great benefits to encourage us not to steal. This is important to note because it's a facet of the malicious compliance of the story. Now, we have a client who we'll call Jay. Jay is a problematic client, as they have accused us of stealing from them multiple times. They've even accused us of stealing when they were holding the cash they had just withdrawn in their hand. Suffice to say, none of us like Jay, and we take extra steps to make sure that Jay's transactions have all been properly documented to the umpteenth degree. We have them fill out a withdrawal slip, even if they have their card. We write their name on our cash counter tickets whenever we run their transaction, and we staple a white copy of the ticket to the withdrawal slips. Now, as said, Jay's been accusing us all of stealing from them, despite them regularly having their debit card lost and or stolen from them around town. They have even accused our branch manager of stealing from them. Our branch manager only touches cash when closing or opening an account. Otherwise, they stay in their office and make calls. And they have also none of the systems in their office that would make stealing possible. Not that they would, because once again, the pay is good. With that backstory out of the way, onto the MC. We were having a slow morning, so there's time to answer the phones. Even with lobbies closed and being drive-through only, we get slammed regularly where we don't have time to answer. I pick up when it rings, and it's none other than Jay. What follows is a paraphrased conversation. Thank you for calling Scrooge & Marley Bank on Baker Street. This is the Hallow One. How can I help you today? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, it's Jay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, hey, Jay. Yeah, I can hear you now. How can I help you?
I'm missing money from my account. I had over $100 in there on Friday, and now I have less than $50.
No, I'll look into that for you. One sec.
Could you, please? Thank you.
I brush off the anger. I understand client frustrations, and I'm having a pretty okay day all around. Check their account, and they're the only one who has done anything with their account. Alright, so I see here where you had those funds on Friday, then you made a withdrawal.
Yeah. That was the last withdrawal I made.
No, Jay, you made a withdrawal Monday and yesterday as well.
I've told you all 100 times I don't want anything coming out of that account. I have my car shipped to you because they get stolen all the time. I don't want anything coming out of that account that I'm not authorizing.
And you authorized these 2 withdrawals. I have your
I need that money to live off of, nothing else. I don't buy anything else. I use that money to live. I told the branch manager to take $300 from my check each month and put it into savings, and I don't see that.
As they're ranting, I'm checking their accounts and seeing they have no savings account. My telecoordinator slips me a piece of paper. If Jay thinks they're being stolen from, get them over to fraud. After Jay takes a break in the ranting, Jay, do you think you're being stolen from?
Of course I am. I'm losing money. I'm trying to keep my account stable, and it keeps going up and down.
Well, do you want me to get you over to fraud?
What can you do? Do you even know how to add and subtract?
Yes, I do, and all your transactions add up to what you had Friday and what you have now.
Well, what you can do is transfer me to branch manager. Are they available?
No, Jay, they're with a client right now.
Well, have them call me back. You have my number in your computer.
I feel sad for my manager and go to check the number. Is it? And I say their phone number.
Let me check. I don't know. I don't call myself. Can you call me? See if that's the number. See if my phone's working.
I can do that for you. I'll have to hang up first, though. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
I hang up. Now, our systems are usually up to date because we do service a number of other clients who don't really move at all. But there's times where the account is so old, and they haven't checked with a banker in a while, that the information is wrong. Jay also left no callback number in case this was wrong, so I call. And it rings. And rings. And rings. The number you are trying to reach is no longer in service. Guess that wasn't the right number. Oops. 10. Some background. In high school, I went to an academic magnet school. Essentially, it was a public school ran like a private school. You had to have certain test scores to get in, no bus transportation since it was for the whole county. Way stricter dress code than all the other schools in the district. And they were able to have a ton of extra rules because it was a choice school. Now, I was the first graduating class. I was there the first year it opened. At that time, it was 5th to 9th grade, and I started as a freshman. The second year, they had completed the elementary wing, so it was K-10. They added grades until my senior year when it was finally K-12. As the school grew, it continued to add more policies. My sophomore year, the school's second year of being open, they began a new policy where all students 7th grade and above had to be on a sports team everywhere. I thought this was really, really stupid. I hated it. I'm not an athlete. I was in other clubs and I was getting increasingly involved with my church. Being the mature 16-year-old I was, my initial plan was to join a team and have a bad attitude. Like an awful, evangelistically bad attitude so that no one would have any fun. And this would prove to the school how awful this rule was. Instead, for all the lazy kids like me, they started a school walking team. It wasn't power walking, just regular walking. We just had to walk around the neighborhood for about 45 minutes 3 times a week after school. I was fine with this. I didn't mind walking around. Of course, there was an adult coach, but since the whole thing was ridiculous anyways, my friend and I declared ourselves co-captains. This mostly consisted in telling the middle schoolers to walk faster. No one else considered us co-captains, but we did. And that's all that mattered to us, since it was all a joke anyways. I did that my sophomore and junior years, but fast forward to my senior year, I was 18, working part-time about 15 to 20 hours a week. I was super involved in my church, and my family was a chaotic mess of dysfunction that traumatized me in numerous ways. They finally enforced a state law that everyone on a sports team has to have an annual physical on file. I didn't really bother with this since it wasn't a real sport anyways. Eventually, they came to me and said that it was so late in the season that even if I got a physical, I would need to pick a different sport in the winter or spring. Walking team was a fall sport. I was essentially just, screw this. I had enough other things in my life to deal with, and I didn't want to put up with this crap anymore. I decided to do exactly what they say and get the physical, so I decided I would do my best to fail it. So eventually I went and saw the doctor. It's important to note that I didn't have a primary care doctor at the time. That's why I didn't get a physical before then. So I just went to some little walk-in clinic and tell them I need a sports physical. I didn't tell them what the sport was. Now, as I was filling out the patient history form, I answered truthfully. I did not lie. But I didn't provide any context. So I checked yes to a history of asthma, mostly from when I was a kid, severe seasonal allergies, and a history of seizures. See, when I was 13, I had a couple dozen seizures in a day or two. No one knew what was going on, and eventually I was diagnosed with epilepsy specifically, having absent seizures. Since then, I had been taking anticonvulsants every day. As far as I'm aware, even 20 years after that initial episode, I'm not sure I've had a full-blown seizure since then. It's literally the mildest case of epilepsy I've ever heard of. The doctor does a quick physical exam, mostly vitals and similar things. As she looks at my patient history form, she asks about the seizures. I explain that I was diagnosed with epilepsy. I take anticonvulsants, and I have a neurologist I see about once or twice a year. She says, "Well, I can't pass you until I hear from your neurologist." I basically hopped out of the chair and said, "Thank you," and walked out. I never did contact the neurologist. Instead, I just gave the paperwork to the school. That's how I, a relatively healthy 18-year-old, got medically disqualified from the school walking team. Hey everybody, Hal Freezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Revenge is Ice Cream Archives, episode 28, and thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories. Well, we are quickly plodding along to the end of the year now. Can't get here quickly enough as far as I'm concerned. I have exciting, wonderful things waiting for me next year, and I'd like them to get here as soon as possible. But I hope your 2023 has been good to you, and I hope next year is better to you as well. We're not quite at the end of the year address yet for me. It's just it's been on my mind. Busy week for me again. All my weeks are kind of busy right now. Getting UV treatment yet again. They've resumed treatment for that. And I have my COVID booster on Friday. So that's going to be a fun weekend dealing with the side effects of that. It's not usually too bad for me. I just usually have a little bit of an ache in my arm and feel a bit bleh. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, and that's me for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.